Great, so now that you created your lead funnel, and you have lots of people who are interested, it's time to create a really compelling proposal that shows why you're the right person to work with, your expertise, your case studies, all of this different stuff. Now, we want to make sure that we create a proposal that has a lot of information that is valuable for your potential client. But of course, you don't want to spend hours and hours for each proposal creating it because you don't know if it's going to lead to a project or not. So the solution to this is to create a really nice template and then to customize it where it really matters. So I want to go through the different sections that I suggest you have in your proposal, and this will help you get those leads that you got in through your lead funnel into becoming actual clients and ongoing projects. Once we get into the proposal, the first page has a lot of actually quite custom information. So here I put the brief, which is information that I have heard from the client and me kind of explaining back to them how I understood their brief and what they're looking for. In the approach section, I talk about how I suggest we approach the project, maybe the types of deliverables that I think we should do, and the type of brand that I'm seeing them create. Then we move on to the project scope. And this is really important because the scope is going to help you and your client make sure that you're on the same page. So throughout the whole process, there's no misunderstandings or any kind of problems like that. So we want to make sure that if there's multiple items included, you have each of them, like brand strategy or identity design, as their own thing. I also like to make a little bit of a what's included bullet point list. That way you can have a little bit of a text describing your approach and how you're kind of seeing it and what is included, but you also have a very clear overview of what is included. Then I have a section on the team, and I think this is really important for making it quite personal. And a lot of times, many of the people who are applying for the same project, they might have the same qualifications. Maybe they have the same level of experience, they all have really nice portfolio pieces. And so talking a little bit about maybe your company values and your experience, and even putting some faces to the team can really help make sure that you kind of put yourself apart and that you create that personal connection with your client. We also include a testimonial, which I think is really important because it shows that kind of social proof that a lot of clients are after. Next up, we do a couple different selected case studies, and these should be relevant to the client project that you are pitching for. So in this case, this was a pitch for a client in the food industry, so we put another food brand that we had worked with. Put a couple nice mock-ups to show the work that you've done. I give a bit of background information. And that just helps your client understand how this project and case study relates to them and why it is an interesting piece for them to have a look at. Next up, if there's a specific part of the project that you might not have covered in your case studies, or that might be extra important for you to highlight, that can be something you want to make your own section. So this client was after packaging, so I decided to put a couple extra pieces of packaging just to show that kind of expertise that we have. Next up, we have another practical section, which is the project workflow and timeline. And so here you're outlining the different steps that you're going through with your client. And this again is just to make sure there's no confusion. You're showing that you're super professional, that you prepared, and you've done this before. So this is a section you can very easily create once and then just slightly customize with, let's say, changing the amount of time or changing the precise details in each of these sections to fit the specific project. Last up, we have the project budget. And here I think it's really important to be super clear. If you have, for example, VAT that you need to add to a project, or if you have any specific requirements, like we do 50% of a payment upfront as a deposit and 50% of a final payment at the end, I like to put it here as well. We have a full-on design agreement or contract that we send once the client has committed to the project. But these little details can be things that are really important for a client to know before they decide to commit to a project. We also have a little thank you section, and in some projects we even included a whole page with images from our portfolio or office just to give a nice last page, because a lot of clients, they tend to scroll right on to the end of the last page, and instead of them seeing the budget right away, they actually get to see a little bit of your work culture. So I think that's quite nice. So if we have a quick scroll through this now, you can see that the cover page is one that you can create as a template. The brief and the approach you do a little bit more custom. The project scope is quite custom. But then when you get into pages like our team, case studies, you can prepare once and then use the case studies that are relevant and just kind of plop them into the project as you're doing it into proposals. Similar with the timeline and process, you can create it once and then just do little tweaks to it. And the project budget is mostly just about plugging in numbers and making sure that everything is right. But most of it is, again, something that you can create as a template. So having this template for a proposal, it will save you a ton of time. And that way you're able to create really professional looking proposals without spending a lot of time before you know if the client is ready to commit.